Hello, everyone. Welcome to Elevate Your Business. I'm your host, Ed Jarecki. Today with us, we have Ulli Hildebrand, the president and owner of Pinpoint Solutions LLC and consultant with the Leadership Group. With over 18 years in human resources, Ulli helps CEOs and CHROs build strong leadership pipelines, focusing on mindset and motivation. She draws valuable insights from the sports world, comparing elite athletes' mindsets to successful business leaders. Ulli will share her evolving definition of success, top challenges, and lessons learned, and how she leverages innovation to overcome her obstacles. Let's welcome Ulli Hildebrand to the show. Ulli, it's great to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Ed, for having me. I appreciate it.
It is truly my pleasure and honor. Thank you so much for being part of the show. So, for our audience to start with, could you share a little bit more about your business and yourself?
Sure, pleasure. So I was born and raised in Germany. I've been living in the US here for 24 years. I have worked mostly in the HR function in very different companies, different in the sense of size. And I have decided at the end of last year to exit corporate and start my own consulting business. And I'm focusing on leadership development, finding the right motivated leaders and helping companies establish a leadership culture that will lead them to success.
Well, I absolutely love that. And there's a lot of companies out there that really need that support, that direction, and to make that move. So, first question, you've had an incredible career. You're now in your own business. How do you define success today?
So, success today is really, in some sense, not all that different from what it was before, in that when I can help people and companies is very rewarding for me. I'm just doing it different today by being a consultant and not being caught up in the corporate world where you have so many restrictions and unfortunately people that are not always on the same page. So as a consultant, hopefully I'll find people that agree with me and that are willing to go down this road.
Outstanding. And you've already alluded to this, but I'll ask the question more specifically. How has your definition evolved since earlier in your career?
I mean, it has evolved. When I was raised, the big success was really determined by professional success. It was all about making enough money to sustain yourself and what position on the career ladder you're in it in. So the whole idea was to be independent. And so that was the success definition that was very prevalent in my function, though, in my professional function of human resources. I've always been able to also look at helping people, individuals, as well as companies then, achieve their goals and balance those needs between employees and the companies. But again, in the past, the way I grew up, the motto was work hard, keep your head down, and good things will happen. And that's how it worked for me. And now it's a bit more about focusing on what I actually enjoy and where my passion is. Because when you run an HR function, there's a lot of other things that you have to look after and take care of that you didn't ask for, and you solve a lot of problems that you didn't create. And today I can be a little bit more selective on what problems I would like to solve.
I love that. Passion is absolutely a key to business success. And it usually should be even career success. But like you said, sometimes we're very limited when we work for large organizations. So carrying that question to the next, through that journey, there are always challenges and obstacles. And of course, being a business owner, it still is a very different world. And so, what are one or two of the big challenges and obstacles that you've experienced through your career journey? And what are the associated lessons learned with them?
So, actually, this is a challenge both working in corporate and as a consultant with my topic, anyways. When it comes to employee and leadership development, I find that many companies and top leaders in their companies are rather short-sighted, specifically as it relates to financial investment. When you think about it this way, I'll give you an example. I've worked for a company that didn't want to pay bonuses in March because the month of March didn't have the financial result that they would have liked to see, even though the bonus is paid for the previous year, and the previous year was one of the best years ever. So, I mean, that's just that that is just terrible. It's terrible for people, for the morale. So I believe that despite what companies state and say, employees are most often not truly regarded as the most important asset. Because if they were actually an asset, you would invest in them and you wouldn't regard them as a cost. Personnel cost is usually one of the biggest in service companies, often the biggest cost factor. And when you consider something as a cost, then by nature, you have to reduce it and not invest in it. Whereas if like a manufacturing company that buys some piece of technical equipment, they consider that an investment and that's an asset. And so they will continue to invest. And of course, they maintain it properly and they do everything they need to keep this machine running. So I think the challenge with that is the investment in employee and leadership development just doesn't have a quick, easily visible return. So you don't see it right away on the bottom line. And that's probably one of the bigger challenges that I face. From an entrepreneurial side, I think when you decide to leave the employed workforce to be a consultant, you just have to really recognize how different it is. When you go to work, as much as you may not like it on certain days, but in some ways, it's a lot easier because you just show up and work is there for you. And then at the end of the day, when you've done your work, you go home. When you're out on your own, no one is telling you really what to do. When to do it or how to do it. So you have to figure out every day what's on the schedule. You have to do it whether you like it or not because it's not driving forward. So really, it's the understanding of what you're heading into, I think, is very important. And knowing yourself enough to decide and to recognize, can you do it? And are you going to have the perseverance to do it? And that's really what's helping. So I have a pretty good read of myself and I've used some assessments to get there, but I can tell ahead of time what's the challenge for me in this whole building a business type of world. And so I know I'm going to have to spend some extra effort when it comes to marketing. I know I'm going to have to spend some extra effort and put a conscious effort into motivating me to learn some technology and do things so I can be prepared. So when I schedule for my day, this is what I'm doing today or tomorrow, then I know it's going to be a little harder, but obviously then once you're done, you also feel a lot better that you actually have done it. So I think it's about knowing yourself so you can manage your own gremlin that will tell you to procrastinate or not do it. I think that's the biggest thing for me.
Self-discipline and the perseverance to keep moving forward and maintain that self-discipline to get the right things done. So there's a function of what do I do? There's a function of when do I do it? And how do I do it? And when you're the business owner, you really have to juggle all of those things. And there's so much more to learn. I'm not a marketer, but I've had to learn a whole lot about marketing over the course of the past year and a half.
Yes. And there's, there's a lot of things that you probably don't enjoy doing. And in that, when you're employed, when you work in a full-time job, there might be things you don't like. And then you go to someone and complain about it and you get it off your chest. But when you're sitting there and doing it for yourself, there's nobody to listen and it's really up to you. And really, quite frankly, there are moments where you think nobody cares.
Absolutely. That's very lonely at times, isn't it?
It can be.
Yeah. And so having a strong support structure becomes incredibly important as a business owner, even as a leader, executive leader. I think it's always important to have a great support structure. But as a business owner, many times, and this is kind of common conversation that's been out there, is it can be very lonely. So having somebody that's there that can be somebody to vent to, somebody just as a sounding board, somebody just to listen. But, for me, it's having somebody that listens that actually understands a little bit of what I'm going through, not just somebody that will listen. So I think those are very fair challenges. And at a minimum for our audience, that just needs to be a recognized part of business ownership. Is that a fair way to state that?
Yes, absolutely. And I think if anybody thinks about going into this, it would be very good to think about ahead of time. Anybody who is seriously thinking about it might want to just sit down and envision themselves day in and day out going into your office if you're lucky enough to have one, or sit at your kitchen table and start doing it all on your own while the sun's out shining and there's other things that you could do. So So I think it's worthwhile to seriously think about it and maybe talk to people who have done it and who can share some of their challenges. But also there's a lot of reward in it. I think if you can actually do it and if you step out of your comfort zone and you work through these issues, I think at the end of the day, you can also be very proud of yourself for having done it.
Absolutely. A lot of golden nuggets in that statement. So when it comes to innovation, how has innovation played a role in your career? How is it playing a role in your business?
Innovation can be many different things. It can be technology, which over my corporate career has come and caught up a few times. When you talk about systems, HRS systems and stuff, it can be process. The way I like to think about it is also, I would include the way you think about something or the way you approach something.
Yeah.
So my innovation, if you will, is what I'm focusing on is based on my experience as an HR leader, but also as an employee who had a boss or several bosses that I reported to. And I realized that there are so many people in leadership positions who either don't know why they're there and they have no idea what leadership really means, or both, they're there for the wrong reasons and they maybe shouldn't be there. So then I thought, what does it take to become great at something? And you alluded to it earlier, the way I look at it is from a sports thing. You need talent for sure, some sort of talent. But if you're a very talented athlete, you're not going to make it to the Olympics if you don't have the motivation and mindset to get there. So it's hard. It's a lot of practice. It's a lot of sacrifice. So there's a lot that top-notch athletes have to do in order to get to the Olympics or to Super Bowl or to Wimbledon, whatever sports discipline it might be. And I really do believe that the same is needed to become a successful leader. You need the motivation and the mindset to lead if you really want to be a good leader. And so I believe leadership development should start with the motivation and mindset, identifying why somebody interested. The reality in my experience is that when a position is vacant, some sort of manager, director position, or vice president position becomes vacant, most companies are not prepared for a backfill. Nobody's ready. So then what often happens is either they start a search on the outside, which costs a lot of money, time, and effort from a lot of people. Or they may decide, even going back to my financial short-sightedness that I mentioned earlier, they may decide, oh, we'll leave this job open for 6 months and save some money, right? Because we're not paying salaries for these 6 months, not recognizing that there is a lot of opportunity cost. When you have a vacant position, a vacant leadership position, the folks that report to this now empty function don't get direction. They're going to try the best they can, but they could be off in the wrong direction. There are people who are going to have to pick up the pieces. So they get frustrated the longer they have to pick up the work. And eventually you have these folks unhappy, at the least, at the worst, getting really disengaged and decide to leave. And now you have more turnover and you have more cost and more issues with other people having to pick up the pieces. So all of that made me think it's so important to identify and select people who early enough from a company perspective fill your talent pipeline, your leadership pipeline, but also from an individual perspective, select the folks that will actually do well in a leadership role, because being a leader is not necessarily easy. There's a lot of responsibility for the employees, for company results. There's a lot of stuff associated with that job, like with any other, that you may not enjoy and that doesn't make you happy. If you're someone who doesn't want to deal with people problems, then leadership might not be the right fit for you.
Yeah, no doubt.
So what happens now that the company's had a vacant position for, 3 or 6 months, they recognize they need to do something, they need to fill it. And because there's no one from the outside and there's no one really ready from the inside, they look at the team and they find the best performer, the person who had the best performance rating, and they're going to tap that person on the shoulder and say, hey, we're going to promote you. What do you say? And of course, that person will say yes, right? Because it's more money, it's a new title. They may not have ever even thought about what leadership means, what it means to them. And certainly most people have not thought about how that changes their life, their work life. And so they may not be happy. They may not be doing well. And then, of course, if you're in a company that just throws you into the leadership pool and see how far you can swim without any help, any direction, any development, it's just very often, unfortunately, doomed to fail. So motivation and mindset matters when it comes to leading others. And that's what I'm trying to help individuals and companies with. Make good choices and make them early so you can be ready. This saying, luck favors the prepared, right? You want to be prepared, especially when it comes to leading the company and taking care of your most important asset, the people.
You said so many things there that resonate with me. I've spent a long time dealing with every issue that you outlined. And so when you talk about leadership and leadership development, there's the mental mindset. And like you indicated, there's the component of you need to really like leading people. You really need to like being in a position where you're helping them grow, you're helping them find ways to do their job better, you're helping find ways to get the job done better. And so those are all kind of legs to being a good leader. Mindset is the key part that drives the execution on all those legs that fall underneath it. But it's that system of legs that come together to give a business the best possible ongoing outcome from the people within that organization. Is that a fair way
Yeah,
to
and
say that?
it's yes. And as a leader, you don't have a growth mindset. How do you develop other people? In all these years that I have been in HR and interview people for leadership positions, and I've always asked the question, why do you want to become a leader? And only once in 20 years or so, only once have I heard somebody say, I really enjoy developing other people, and that's what I want to do. Not that that's the only thing a leader needs to do. There's a
Right.
lot of other things that come, but it is an essential piece. But I've heard all kinds of answers. I've heard, well, my dad was a plant manager and now it's my turn. Back in the day, it was the corner office, or when I worked for Mercedes, for many people, it was the company car that came with that promotion. It's just not enough. I wish everybody could have a company car in a corner office, but that's just not sufficient.
Right. It doesn't provide a passion-driven goal set to really help the business succeed if all you want is that corner office.
Right. And then if I can say maybe one more other thing about innovation, we're going to talk about AI for a second.
Yeah.
Obviously, artificial intelligence comes to mind when we talk about innovation, although it's been around for a long time, but it hasn't been publicly available for all that long. And I think it's an amazing invention. It can be helpful in so many ways and streamline efforts, and give you a good starting point. Not an expert here by any stretch, but I can totally see how that helps. However, ChatGPT, when you take that as the AI synonym here, when you think about it, it's really the perfect employee for a certain task, right? It never tires. You can send this back and redo things a million times. They will never complain. It will never ask for an increase. It never asks for a break. It doesn't have a family to take care of. It's really the perfect employee, at least for certain tasks.
Yeah.
However, when you think about how we are now more so in a virtual world where the personal connection has to suffer and communication becomes more important, I wonder how this tool is making us even less human. So let me try to make an example. So if I, as an employee or as a leader in an organization, struggle with communication, and now I work from home, I have the ability to go to ChatGPT and just have that thing draft my email, and I copy and paste it and I send it off. So now I don't learn anymore how to communicate. I don't have any interaction or see any nonverbal communication. So I think there's a risk there from that angle, but almost more importantly, now with that type of tool available, something that can answer pretty much every question. Now, again, you have to check for hallucinations, of course, but they can answer every question, and it gives you all these great ideas. How much independent thinking are we losing the more we're going to use AI?
I think that's a fair question. And there's another part of it too that drives home where and how is AI going to fit into our future. Part of it is the independent thinking. Now, I think part of that is offset because more thinking is required. And that kind of ties to the thought that was spinning through my mind is the expectation, the productivity expectation in using the AI tool by organizations is skyrocketing.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so that's exacerbating the issue that you're articulating because now I've got to produce more work and I don't have time. So I'm going to spit my notes into an AI tool. It's going to spit me back a response. I'm going to briefly glance at it. If it resonates with me, or maybe I didn't review it, that's even a bigger problem. But if it resonates me for ghost, but instead of, it's taken me 15 minutes to write an email or an hour to draft out this plan or whatever, and now I can do it in minutes. Well, now instead of doing one plan or one email, I'm expected to do 10. And so
Right.
that's the other challenge that I'm seeing. And as a business owner, this is actually being exacerbated because we're competing with a lot of other people out there that are utilizing these tools to move at a pace that we never moved through back in the 90s or the earlier 2000s or whatever. And so how is that going to manifest itself as this culture continues to move forward with the use of these tools?
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I will say from a consulting perspective, with the help of AI, you can produce a lot of content in no time. And it's great. But I think in the long haul, I think every consultant has to prove him or herself through quality.
Yes.
And then there will be other factors again, the more personal interaction, because every company can develop their own training curricula by typing in a prompt. They don't need a consultant for that. So I think the experience and the expertise that anybody brings to their job there is important. The quality becomes a key thing. I mean, not that it hasn't been important before, but you do want to make sure that that a client realizes you're not just using AI and you're putting a lot of your knowledge and experience into this. And that's really where the value is.
In a lot of conversations I've had, AI is a tool, but you still have to know that material. You're
Yes.
still generally going to be the one teaching it. And if you're not teaching it, you're building the capability through some type of technology solution, but it has to be able to connect, to resonate, and to teach in a manner that's going to produce the desired outcomes. Because technology really can be an incredible, incredible teaching tool. It's been a while, but I put two business cases together on AR, VR at the time. And of course, we've got MR out now. And one of the railroads had actually used a virtual reality tool to start teaching some of the engineers their particular roles. And traditionally in the railroads, it would take approximately 15 years to master some of these
Wow.
positions and the roles. And this one railroad, in leveraging VR, reduced that to 3. And that is
That's amazing.
statistical information. So technology really can be an outstanding enabler and enable learning at a pace that we just haven't had through traditional mechanisms. But it's still an enabling tool. Somebody's got to
Right.
write that curriculum. So somebody's got to really know their stuff if they're going to write a VR module around training in a particular role within a business.
Yep, for sure. I mean, I love it. I think it's great. It's wonderful, but it has to be consumed with caution.
And with that expectation that you're still the expert, you're still the architect, and that means that you still have a responsibility to understand what's in it.
Yeah, no, I know. It's a super interesting topic because the other thing with that is though also there are like in one of my jobs, we rolled out ChatGPT for the company and we had a very soft approach. People were basically given a choice. The CEO really wanted this to be used and he loved it. He used it all the time. But it was a really soft approach. And I would say 80 to 85% of the workforce had no interest in even trying. And part of that was they've been in their job for many years, so they know they already have templates. They don't need it for that purpose. But I do think there is fear that AI can replace, even though wherever you look, people will say, no, AI will not replace people. But I will say, in my opinion, I will not replace people with themselves. But I think people who don't use AI might be replaced by people who will use AI.
I think that's an incredibly profound statement. I agree with that sentiment. Where I do differ a little bit is on that front. Will AI replace people? I'd change it. Will it replace roles? And the answer to me is it absolutely will replace roles.
Yes,
Um,
if you put it this way, I agree.
So for the audience out there, and they've heard me say this multiple times through multiple podcasts, episodes, the bottom line is that you need to be out there educating yourself. You need to be out there familiarizing yourself with these tools and practicing with them. If you're not familiar with GPT, pull up. They've got almost free versions out there, and they have limitations on the free versions because of the data that they have access to and stuff like that. But go out there, play with it, ask it questions, just start to understand, and you'll be amazed on what you can get back out of it. At the same time, educate yourself on new skills. What are the new skills necessary to perform the role that this could be shifting to? And as part of that, the softer skills, the leadership, the team collaboration, and all those types of things become more paramount in importance as the physical aspects of our roles are replaced by robotics, AI, and other tools that are not just coming online. It's going to create a revolution in where we're at today versus we're going to be 5 or 10 years down the road. And I've mentioned this a couple of times on my show as well, is flying cars are now starting to be licensed around the world. Now, is that not going to change a whole lot?
Yeah. But you know what? On the bright side, for people like me, some things will not change. And what's not changing is the importance of leadership and the recognition that leaders, the way they behave has a ripple effect throughout the organization. They impact everything from employee satisfaction to the bottom line, so that piece doesn't change. And like you said, with more technology, if anything, it becomes even more important to focus on the soft side and the interpersonal skills, the
Yes.
emotions that AI, at least so far, cannot provide.
Absolutely agreed. Final takeaway for our audience. One thing that every business entrepreneur out there needs to consider as part of their journey.
I mentioned it earlier. There's actually two things. There's commitment, but then the other thing, as I said before, is self-awareness. It's like get to know yourself, know what you want, what you need, what makes you happy or unhappy, know how you act and how you react to things, understand what drives you. I think if you can get there, you can make good choices. And not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Not everybody should be an entrepreneur, just like not everybody can be a CEO or should be a CEO. And so I think it's about making good choices for yourself and making that choice yourself. Don't let it be chosen by anyone else. So I think if you can do that, you make good choices for your career, but you also make good choices for your personal life. It'll help you build relationships. And that's something that we all need, especially with all this technology coming, right? So
I love it. Well said. Thank you for that. I want to thank you all for joining us today, and a special thank you to our guest, Ulli Hildebrand, for sharing her insights, experiences, and success tactics with us. We hope this conversation has left you inspired and motivated to embrace the challenges of entrepreneurship with vigor, innovation, and adaptability. Remember, success comes in many forms, and it's essential to define it for yourself. Take the lessons shared by Ulli to heart as you navigate your own entrepreneurial journey. Embrace change, seek out opportunities for growth, and always be willing to adapt to the ever-evolving landscape of business. Thank you once again to our phenomenal guest speaker, Ulli Hildebrand, and thank you all for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next time as we continue exploring the stories behind incredible entrepreneurs. Stay resilient, stay innovative, and have a wonderful day, everybody.